Welcome to another episode of Echoes of Anne Youthful Voices, a podcast by the U.S. Anne Frank Youth Network. Today we are speaking with Bálint, a member of the International Anne Frank Youth Network from Hungary, and a university student studying history. First, can we start with you introducing yourself for our audience?
Hi, dear viewers. My name is Bálint and I'm from Hungary. I'm a member of the Hungarian Anne Frank Youth Network, the Hungarian department. Right now, I am in Eger, a small rural town in Hungary. I am studying at this town's university. I am in my second year of studying history on a BSc level. I am also 21 years old.
Next, how did you get involved with the Anne Frank Youth Network, and what have you done as a part of it?
So, I was in 11th grade in my third year of high school, and I was sitting in a history class. We didn't have the teacher yet. And she enters the room, she goes to her chair, and she says, "Guys, we are going to have a traveling exhibition about the life of Anne Frank. I am going to need a few people to be peer guides. So I would be really happy to have some of you as those peer guides. It is all voluntary." And she says that she has already wrote my name down before asking me. So it was decided, my fate was decided there. It was decided by her.
That's so funny. Were you like a teacher's pet?
Sort of. Sort of, very, very.
Okay, so my next question is, how would you define democracy?
Democracy is a system of governance and a system of society, a societal system where every individual is directly or indirectly involved in the everyday governance and the broader political system via elections, referendums, protests, and with direct communication between the voter and the representatives of the voter.
Great. What do you think are the key features of a democracy?
For a system to be a democracy, it requires elections in a given period of time, be it in every fourth year, every sixth, every fifth year, every third year. So, number one is elections. Number two, these elections have to be free and fair. So, you do not say, from the perspective of the government can't say that I'm not going to let that party run because I do not like them. They have too many voters. They have more voters than me. So that's an example of free and fair elections. Also, this system has to allow its citizens to organize freely, to hand in requests for referendums. Those requests have to be, how do you say, so those requests have to be decided fairly, in a non-partisan way, solely based on the topic and the rule of law, the laws regarding the issue. And also, a democracy requires free press. It's very important to have free press and a media where everybody has the right to share his or her opinion without fearing that he or her will be discriminated based on his or her opinion about topics.
Yeah, no, I think that's such like a crucial part of it. And because you brought that up, I'm going to skip around on the question list. So on the Anne Frank Youth Network Instagram, you spoke about fake news and media literacy. what do you find to be the role of media literacy in democracies, or do you believe that democratic citizens have any responsibilities when they're consuming media?
I think we have to view this question based on the possibilities and the educational level of the citizens. So, for example, a person from the upper middle class or from the middle class or from the elite of the society, of course, they have a really big responsibility in consuming media, and they have to be literate. So they have to have media literacy. But if you take a man or a woman who is very poor and he or she is living in like rural Idaho or rural Hungary or rural anywhere, and she or he is not that educated, I think we can't put the exact same media literacy expectations on this group of people. But instead of this, organizations and the society as a whole, or as the government, needs to elevate these people to a higher level of media literacy and media consciousness.
No, I think that's such a great response. And I love that you like brought in like different levels of expectations versus like based off of their ability and like the tools that they have been given. I think that's such a great way to like think about it. So, next question is, democracy isn't directly about freedoms, but especially in the minds of Americans, it's really closely linked to freedom. How do you see freedom as a pillar of democracy?
I have to disagree with this statement because freedom is fundamental to democracy. You can't have democracy without individual freedom, and you can't have individual freedom without democratic system. Take a look, for example, just take a look around the world, take a look at history, take a look at countries of the past, and you can see that those countries where people had freedoms to say their opinions, to start a business, to organize, to be themselves, those societies and those countries were democratic. But those countries where the individual didn't have, or his rights were taken away by the government, those systems were not democratic. They can never be democratic. A system can never be democratic if that system is based on the idea that a group of people cannot have rights based on a political ideology.
No, that's a good point. That's great. Okay. The Youth Network, as its name suggests, supports young people in various activities. Where do you see our members and other young people when participating in democracy?
I think a membership in this international organization can give the people, the members of this organization, a broader perspective and valuable experience and skills to be more active members of their society, and via and through our voluntary work. Like, for example, we in the Hungarian team do many special education classes. For example, I did a class on the topic of democracy. So I can say that we have and we can have an impact on our closest part of society, where we are always present and we can always be in touch with those people who we have educated.
Kind of like a follow-up, do you think that there's a special role for young people in a democracy? Do you think that their role in a democracy is in any way different than older generations?
Young people have more energy and they have more creativity, and they are, let's just say, they have more access to information than, for example, older people. Let's just take a look at the social media usage of older generations and how they can differentiate between fake news and reality, real information. How can they distinguish propaganda and actual media? So I believe young people like you and me and everybody in the International Anne Frank Youth Network and its local departments have a kind of catalyzing role in society. Like, for example, we can catalyze organizations, we can catalyze how people think about different issues, we can catalyze conversations about topics. We are catalyzers.
I think that's so great. I love the idea of like young people being the catalyst or like the visionaries in a democracy. Part of the Anne Frank Youth Network's mission states that their goal is to, quote, foster a world rooted in tolerance, inclusivity, human rights, and democratic values. Why do you think that democratic values is on that list as an important part of remembering Anne's legacy?
Because democratic systems don't do genocide. I mean, let's just take historical examples. Both the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany and fascist Italy were totalitarian dictatorships. There was no opposition against the power of the dictator, against the dictating party. So it was easy to organize a genocide like the Holocaust, which eventually killed Anne Frank after 2 years of hiding.
Next, more broadly speaking, is there anything that you feel that you gained from your experience in the Anne Frank Youth Network?
Personally, I have gained many friendships. I have gained many beautiful memories, many moments of companionship, and also I have kind of gained teaching experience, which was never actually a goal in my life to be a kind of teacher. As I have said previously, I am not studying to be a teacher, but it's funny that I have maybe as many teaching experience, maybe a bit less than my friends who are actually studying to be teachers.
That is funny.
And I have realized via this teaching experience that how hard it is to be a teacher, and no, I am not able to do it as a full-time job.
Fair enough. Are there any other responsibilities of citizens that you think are essential to democracy outside of what we talked about with media literacy and like being engaged with news?
A responsible citizen knows his or her best interests. A responsible citizen feels solidarity towards those fellow citizens who are not his or her closest family members, do not work in the same profession but in another field. So solidarity is a fundamental thing for a working society. Let's just take 20th century Poland when it was a communist dictatorship. The movement Solidarity changed the whole history of that country. The feeling of solidarity can move big things, can change the hardest oppressive systems.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great one to point out. Okay, another thing that I've been thinking about a lot is that democracy is a relatively fragile form of government.
Mm-hmm.
Based off of your experience, what do you think makes democracy so fragile and makes democratic backsliding so easy to fall into?
What I am going to say is not my own idea, but an idea of a very influential Hungarian publicist who said that if we take a look around the world, we can see that in many countries, big corporations can pay more money to elected politicians who were elected to represent the community than the community of voters who elected these people. So I think the political power, the political lobbying power of big companies is a huge threat to democracy. So it is fundamental to democracies to have common sense based regulations on these big corporations and their involvement in politics. Another reason which makes democracy fragile form of government, if the elected politicians are alienated from their people, like for example they are not in touch with the everyday reality of the working class people, the everyday man or woman, and they start focusing on very high intellectual topics, which maybe they are actually important, but the everyday voter sees it as something like, man, X costs too much. Why are we talking about this and this instead of talking about the prices of X, for example, or the prices of milk in Hungary, or the prices of everything in Hungary? Instead of this, we're talking about very, very silly things.
I think those are such great responses. How do you find that your experiences have impacted how you value democracy, free speech, etc.?
I grew up in a system of governance which, at the beginning of its era, it was quite democratic, it was quite liberal, it was quite free for the everyday man, and it was quite free for businesses. So it's quite free for long years, but in the past years it became more and more autocratic, more and more organized around a specific person. And it's a really unique experience, both for me and for my generation in Hungary, because we are experiencing how can a relatively democratic system turn into a full and open autocracy without a huge amount of citizens standing up against this political project and say that, no, we want democracy, because things like this didn't happen here. And I think this experience made me realize both the fragility and the valuability of the democratic system.
So we're kind of winding down the interview, but first I wanted to ask if there are any resources or books that you would recommend if someone wants to learn more about democracy.
It will be quite silly to say it as an example, but if you watch the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, you can see how actually it is a political thriller, and you can see how a democratic republic can be transformed into a dictatorship based on the fears of the everyday citizen and the everyday citizen's need of safety. And how can this need be manipulated?
That's a really good point. I was not expecting Star Wars, though. I love it. Okay. And then the final question is there anything that you wanted to end the episode with sharing? Is there anything about democracy that we didn't cover but you feel is important to talk about?
I think it's important to be in the moment, to actually live with the people who are around you. Know your surroundings, know the problems of your surroundings, because if you do not know these, you can be easily turned against your fellow men and women. So it's very important to be in your local communities.
Yeah.
And it's also important to know history, to teach history properly based on the facts, and to continuously being critical with everything, basically.
Today, Bálint and I spoke about democracy, particularly about its core principles and some of the responsibilities of democratic citizens. For more on our democracy campaign, or to learn more about the U.S. Anne Frank Youth Network, check out our Instagram at us.AnneFrankYouthNetwork. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.